I do have a question here. It says, I'm an international student with a student visa. I'm almost done with my degree. Assuming I can't find a job in my field of study right away, how difficult would it be for me to get a green card and how much would it cost?
Well, it depends. As an international student, I take it you're on an F1, which means that you're in good status. So my advice is keep your good status. One of the things you could do is try to see if you can qualify for OPT. There's lots of options after you've finished your first bachelor's if you want to continue, or if you want to see if you can get practical training that extends you for 2 years post your graduation. Another option is you can always go into the H-1B, maybe find an employer. I know the cap season is over, but you could potentially try to change status to maybe an employer, or an employment visa or something along those lines. If you can, shoot me an email. Eddie will put my email up there, and I can do a little bit of discussion into other options for you, so long as you stay in status. Just remember, in order to change your status in the United States, you have to be in status. So maybe for next season, you could try to throw your application in there for an employment visa. Many employers are willing now to look at those candidates. Otherwise, you could probably try going into a master's program. Of course, that does not lead to a green card. But if you email me, we can talk about potential options that you could explore.
I have an immigration question, kind of
Sure.
piggyback on that. If a person has a green card as the derivative of the spouse, so they either have a conditional or some
Or permanent.
some other form, and they get divorced and that spouse no longer wants to cooperate with the immigration process, I would be dealing with the division of assets of that couple. If the spouse has to leave the country, is there some limitation on a non-resident owning property in the United States, and how does, or having assets, how does that work? Because I've had that come across that, well, I can't receive that property because I'm not going to be here anymore because I'm going to lose my immigration status.
So if they've had status at some point, which means they've had a valid social security number, they've had a valid green card, and say they're going to get a divorce and the person doesn't want to continue, and we've exhausted options of waiver, they've been placed in removal. So certainly it's a long process, and we're at the end of that. They can still maintain their assets in the United States, because remember, they had their social security number, which acquired their home. Whether they're financially capable of maintaining that poses a different set of questions.
Okay.
But the mere fact that they've had some kind of status, some kind of law, and I say lawful, meaning they've had their social, they've had their green card, and things are kind of going downhill, they're able to maintain that asset. Once it's legally obtained, they can. The question will be, how are they going to maintain it? And I think that's what becomes more problematic with clients that are being removed or departed. I've had clients, for example, sign over the car. I always say sign over the title to maybe a close family member. If the car is being financed, you might have to notify the bank that you have to turn it in. If it's outright property that is owned, I always say, and I always encourage clients to have some kind of will or something of that sort, because immigration and removal from the United States is almost like death. You mentally, emotionally, and physically have to prepare for that departure. So I often encourage them to have a will. If they have minor children, I encourage some kind of, what do you call it?
Power of attorney.
Power of attorney, yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. I encourage all my clients, if they have minor children and are undocumented, because the United States will not say because you have minor children you can stay. They will say take your minor children with you.
Wow.
We have a bunch of United States citizens
Little
children
children.
living in poverty all over the world, because they're not going to say we won't remove you because you have minors.
child.
So the power of attorney does come into